Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Friday night televised, Twitch-avised episode of our Alumni Robotics Symposium series during this pandemic-affected year of 2020. And so we welcome you to a Mustang Robotics event tonight, in which we are going to interview one of our alumni who returns to us to discuss ideas about their pathway through school and into careers, and how they walk through the ups and downs of their choice of how they were going to walk through that pathway. We are a program located in San Diego, California, Chula Vista area. We are Mustang Robotics Team 507. We're an after-school club that has been around for over a decade now. So we have a giant group of alumni. And this year we dove in, asked them to come back, and here we go. So tonight we are proud to have Janella joining us, and she goes way back to where, way before I had gray hair in my beard, and back to the day. Yes. Welcome, Janella. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Cool. I'm doing well. These Friday nights are actually kind of fun. I thought at first earlier in the year, Friday, 6 p.m. at night, I was going to be totally tired. But you said something as we were talking earlier about my energy. So obviously I got my energy going well here. You're doing well yourself?
Yep.
Cool.
Very good.
Very good. So we'll jump right into the conversation. And why don't you tell me a little bit about first graduation year? We're not trying to pull out age here or anything, but kind of making sure that the kids realize that being in robotics, there's a lot of similarities, probably regardless of what year you graduated from Otay Ranch High School. Tell us when you joined robotics. Tell me whether you joined before I was ever around, and then we'll start the conversation that way.
Yeah, actually, I watched Steven Salazar's interview right before this, and he talked about the seniors and how they were like the group before him. I was not a senior. He was already there when I joined, so I joined in 2011, I think. Like, I have no fears about my age. It's cool. I know I'm going to look the same for a couple more years. And 2011 was really crazy. 2012 was even crazier. We went to Worlds when it was still in Disneyland. That was fun. And
it wasn't at Disneyland. It was across the street at the Anaheim Convention Center. But I think we actually did go to Disneyland one day after that. I think we, or a few of us walked over there. But you are that Anaheim generation.
Yeah.
We've actually transitioned since you've been gone. We had an entire generation of students who experienced Worlds in Kentucky. And now we're moving on to the next generation, and starting this year is going to be Dallas. And so you come from a time period that a lot of kids have no idea is there, except for the picture of the classroom. And we do have pictures and magnets everywhere of all the kids that came before. And so, Janella, you joined the club. Why did you join robotics on campus? What was special? What was the draw?
Right. Yeah. So I guess contextually, this was way back when Mustang Robotics was so small. I just heard that applying to join Mustang Robotics is quite competitive these days from you. And that was not the case. I was able to just sneak in. Nobody said anything. Pretty much I was friends with quite a few people who were graduating alongside me. And I essentially joined because all throughout high school, I had always been friends with the graduating class. And so when I was a junior, I was like, oh, well, I'm not friends with that graduating class. Now I have to make friends my own age. What is this? And I knew Hayden Young. I knew Neil Katakawate, Desiree, Heidi ended up joining the following year. And I knew Isabel Cabana. And basically I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go try and do this thing because I need some friends. And like, I'm kind of interested in engineering because I'm very good at math. So why not? And then I ended up joining this small team that was pretty cool. Other people joined because they knew Mrs. Salazar, but I never took a chemistry class in high school. And I know that like I'm talking to there's quite a few high school students watching this right now, and they might be very shocked. I did not take a single chemistry class while I was in high school at Otay Ranch High School. I took physics 3 times.
So we'll give a little background to this real quick. Janella comes from the starting portion of Mustang Robotics, in which we were trapped in the back of a chemistry classroom working on a bunch of tables that had Bunsen burner gas tubes and things, and sinks in the middle of the table. So you'd watch little nuts and bolts fall down the sink, and you'd be like, oh damn, there goes another screw, there goes another bolt. But this was the early years of Mustang Robotics, before we were able to expand and actually have a workshop in a storage room and things like that. The other portion is she's referring to the original person who started Mustang Robotics and a lot of the VEX programs in our area, Miss Salazar. And luckily the alumni she was referring to as Miss Salazar's son. So we start to see connections of why Mustang Robotics was started. It was a love of engineering. What you just said is super common. We've now done multiple episodes, and every single one of them, there's more of this human aspect of joining robotics that you're searching for than necessarily you join for that experience of engineering, notebooking, programming. That isn't that first draw walking in the door. It seems to me everyone is saying that draw really is more, you need that human interaction of someone who thinks at your level, is willing to interact with you and have good teamwork. I do remember that first year walking in, and you were the loud kid in the group. And you know, there's a little bit of me. I'm not the quietest kid in the group. So I do remember like me and you kind of talking a lot. And on the opposite end, I have a friend out there named Hayden, and he was kind of a quiet kid. And somehow me and Hayden talked a lot. So your team lives inside of me forever, and you have to know that. I love your team. But let's start talking about your experiences in robotics. So you are in robotics. You already brought up you made it to Worlds. Is there something you want to tell us about the memory, cohesiveness, a feeling, an event, a moment? Go ahead.
So much. Like it was a crazy time, because that was when like things really flipped for me. Like for full context, and I'm sure you remember this because I made Miss Salazar cry when I graduated. When I joined robotics, I didn't think I was going to go to college. So it was nothing like I wanted to get engineering experience because one day I'm going to be an engineer and I need this on my resume, or I want to go to college for engineering and they need to see that I have experience. I was not even sure that I was going to college. I thought I was just going to go to community college and mess around for a few more years, because I really just had no direction. And even before joining robotics, I thought I was going to drop out of high school and go get my GED somewhere and like then do the same path over and over again. Like I just didn't see higher level education in my future. So that's like the big like picture to that, right? My first year being in robotics, I was a manager, and I'm going to just say that outright right now, like looking back and like versus where I am now, and then looking back then, I was a manager because I was afraid that I would not be qualified to do anything else for the team. And I'm just going to say right now, like, I've seen a few episodes where it was like, do you have advice for your young self? I was so wrong. Like, that was like a time. And of course, like, my team was very nice. Like, we were able to, like, they still, like, appreciated my ideas and I would share them. And it was a very comfortable space. It was really cozy in that, like, small chemistry lab. But I wanted to be a manager because I didn't think I was qualified to do anything else, which is, like, a great theme of my engineering life as a woman.
You fell back into that pattern of feeling like you couldn't go and cut or go and put the parts together or go and design or take that. What do you think it was? We're really cool program in the sense we've always had young ladies involved in the program. We are not a boys only environment. Let me just start with that. Currently, we run pretty close to 50-50 in our club of 36, and that's really honorable. We love that part of our club. Do you think though that there was a gender thing within yourself where you kind of gave up that role and you were more like, let the boys do the building and I'm
I
gonna
think
do
it was
this?
like a baked in thing, you know, like it was a feeling that had been like baked in from being very, very young and like being shamed a lot when I was younger for like being boyish and all
Mhm.
these things. Like if I got any Filipinos out there, like my family called me a tomboy all the time and it did not feel good. And so yeah, it just felt like I wasn't going to be appreciated in all contexts if I like, you know, if I went in as an engineer. I was like so wrong. In the end, my mom was super excited to see me competing in robotics and she didn't care what I was doing. Like she was like, "Oh, you're a manager? That's okay. You're managing the team, you know?" And that was also something I didn't realize before. Like all these people competing for project management roles. Like, and
Mhm.
I was doing that since I was in high school. And that was just something that like at the time, because I didn't come in with a lot of direction to Mustang Robotics, I learned like so much about like what I wanted to do and what I actually can do, like what capabilities I have myself. And it was nice because it was like I found it without looking for it. And I feel like, you know, like those little self discovery moments, they're hard to come by these days, you know? So,
But a
and
lot of that has to be coming from an internal feeling like you're starting to recognize the pride in your work and the development of ideas and the new ideas that are being facilitated from your learning. And it takes time for that. And that's why we invited you here today. And one of the reasons we invited so many alumni was we knew we would get this honesty about, hey, you know what? There was ups and downs. Let me just not make this a rosy, sweet story that high school was all crazy cool and everything was perfect. You lead off with everything's not going perfect, but you find robotics, and I do know you loved robotics, and it was a great place to be in the afternoons, surrounded by other people who are very motivated, very, very motivated young minds. But as we talk about robotics, the common thing here for all of us is VEX Robotics. What did you think when you made it to Worlds? You got to tell the crew because not everyone makes it to Worlds. What was your opinion of walking into Anaheim Worlds with probably 17, 1,800 teams,
that
1,700 teams?
at that time, that was so crazy because at that point, you know, we didn't have like, I don't know, semifinals or you have to go to states, you have to go to nationals. Like there weren't levels. It was like you won a competition, you got a certain award, and then you just went. Like it was your ticket. All you had to do was prove that whatever iteration of your robot you had at that specific tournament
Yes.
was the one. And we got it, and it was like nebulously this feeling like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to Anaheim, we're gonna go to the hotel. And it was like, as I've heard before, a vacation, but also it was like so shocking. I remember I brought my skateboard too, so I was like going through all of the aisles on the smoothest concrete, and it was just like crazy seeing like countries, different countries at
Very
this
much
point. I
so.
was like, oh, it's really world. It's actually world. And I remember like going around and like one being shocked because I remember, I don't know if this is true still now, but at the time, like the unicorn of robotics was like all the New Zealand teams. Like we always said, like, there's something in the water over there.
Yeah.
We're just like they have Lord and they have the Kiwi teams like that. I remember just saying that over and over again. And at the time, we were also friends with like um, people like some LA charter school. I don't remember their name, but I remember like we were so excited to see them because we were like, oh my gosh, we like made it to Worlds with you.
Yeah,
Like, we're
yeah, yeah.
together. Um,
Believe
and
it or not, you're probably talking about the Chadwick School. Um,
or my team was like friends with another charter school.
Lancers. And we're giving a shout out to both of those programs
Yeah.
out there. Wonderful programs. The third tournaments, have a great time.
No, I
Support
remember
your kids.
talking to them. I remember like we would be so. Remember the year after I graduated. I think we actually had those teams over for like a build session. I was like, you guys really came all the way here from LA? That's crazy to me. Um,
The
but yeah,
VEX community has an incredible base in Southern California, and a lot of the mentors do work together. And those same individuals you're talking about are still the same mentors of the teams now, and they're still pumping out brains and experience, and kids more ready for life than they think they are, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
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 So,
Like Worlds was just a crazy, like an air. Like it was just a weird, like energy, like where everybody was like, this is one thing everybody in one place has been working on for the last how many years. Is that
yeah.
no, that can't be the same sweater because you weren't involved with the program.
No, this one's from 18, but it's very similar. All of them are.
Mhm.
So Janella, we have to stop the conversation here, and I gotta tell you something. I really, really do. And everyone out there listening, I want you to think, if you've been to Worlds, I just need you to think about this for a second. Janella, there was a time in which I believe in 2012, you and your friend had to go to a store before you went to Worlds, and you showed up with a bunch of clothespins. And the clothespins, you wrote team numbers on them, and then you screwed around for the next 3 days trying to go and find people, cute boys. Boys were finding cute girls. Everyone's trying to stick these little pins on people's backs and not let them know that there's this clothespin hanging on the back of your sweater hoodie
All right,
or
listen
on your
here.
butt.
Everybody,
Well, guess what?
either
It
everybody
still
was
happens.
It still happens.
Oh my God, now you're going to claim it. For a second, you were going to be, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Listen, that was my thing. That was me. Okay. Like that was all me. And you know what? Whether or not you guys think you've won the game, we pinned Karthik and we like pinned him with a tail of clothespins. I actually have some of those clothespins still somewhere in my like closet over here. Wait, it still happens? Why are people still doing this?
Because some little freshman kid saw you do it when you were a senior and thought it was funny, and they came back within the same generational pool of 4 years, and some next kid saw it, and welcome to the dominoes just fell in a wonderful way. That a couple years ago I was standing in Kentucky and some kid walked up and pinned someone, and I lost it because all I could think about was like, no kidding, that came from my club. Like, are you kidding me? And the kid thought it was like the coolest new nerd thing. He's like, look what I'm doing. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool, kid. And totally thinking of you guys.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, yes, I did go to a store. I was pretty obsessed about this too. Like I was like, you guys, we have to play the clothespin game. And everybody's like
1,000 clothespins labeled and 507 everywhere. And if you brought them back, you got a piece of candy.
Yes. And pins,
so Janella,
little wrenches too.
Oh yeah, there was a bunch of toys that year. We had stuff we were shooting in the air, and they came down. And that was the toy year. All my friends out there, if you're, we do have some friends in China we talk to. So if there's any Chinese teams out there and you make it to Worlds, bring all those cool little toys that we've never seen. All the little lighty up stuff. Oh, we love it. So Janella, I think this is now the core part of our conversation, because you take a very unique step out of high school. And I think you already volunteered to us. High school was not smooth, especially the first little bit of it. And for whatever ups and downs, you even had thoughts of dropping out. And you get through high school, and believe it or not, your senior year, you look really stable to me until the end when you know you need to leave. And then it was tears like, oh my God, I'm graduating. I don't want to go. But you leave because we kind of have to kick seniors out. You don't get to stay. You got the piece of paper. You won that game. Now you play the game of life.
I got my receipt. Yeah, my paper receipt from Mr. Bros.
so now we ask you, what did you do? What pathway did you take? What were and how did you get going with that? Because we're now going to start talking about international studies, I believe. It would be the name of the program, correct?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but
all right. So
yeah,
give it to us.
It's quite the roller coaster. So basically, I applied to many colleges as one does, and I didn't tour any. So I never had the opportunity to go on a tour. And so I just blindly applied, and I get into a few schools that I don't care about, and then it comes down to two. So I got into NYU's new Polytechnic University. And at the time, like they had no graduating classes, but I was like, I want to live in New York. I want to be far, far away from Chula Vista. I'm ready to be free. And then I get I get accepted to UCI. And then somehow I just decided that UCI was just barely far enough, but close enough to home that I could have some independence, but like still like fall back if like I need to, go home. So I went to UCI, but I had applied under I applied under mechanical engineering.
Okay.
I got accepted under electrical engineering, so that was weird. And I start my studies. I took so many AP classes while I was at Otay. So I ended up being like very far ahead, and I just like took engineering classes left and right. I was finished with math so early. I was finished with physics like super early, like within the first year. Most people in my like graduating class didn't finish physics until like maybe their second year. And I just kept taking all of these like major classes, so much so that by the first quarter of my second year, I was already a junior, and I hated it. I hated it so much because at that point, those are the classes that are like, this is uniquely your major, like the class is 15 people and you're looking around and there's like 3 girls. And they, at the time, my like college didn't have a very good rating on graduating female electrical engineers. And I was like, well, it's about to be a lonely next, like, 3 more years.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was. And I feel like I have to say this because I need people to know that this stuff happens and it's not roses. I cried for 3 days. Like I just cried for 3 days. It was so bad that my like mom had to drive up from San Diego or Chula Vista by herself. She doesn't drive. She doesn't drive that long. And she drove up just to make sure that I was okay because I was like in my room crying for 3 days, barely eating, didn't go to any classes, let my like studies fall within like that 3-day period and then the weeks to come, that like I ended up having to withdraw from the class. And then the other classes were going to be very bad grades. And like basically I have like 1 W. It was like a crazy time. Like I went on academic probation after that quarter. And then out of nowhere, I take a VHDL class, which like if y'all are not in like college yet, basically it's very, very, very low level logic. Like it's like getting these AND gates, these OR gates. But when you take a VHDL class, it looks like programming. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I love programming. So let's lightweight switch over to computer science and engineering. I took some classes and I was like, F this. I don't like the computer engineering part. I like the computer science part. And so then I was like, okay, we're going to switch to software engineering.
Gotcha.
At this point, I'm like in a class that I like. And at this point, I stopped playing lacrosse. I was playing lacrosse for 2 years at UCI. And since there was only one team, we were the school team. But it was really toxic. Like I just got myself into a really crazy toxic situation with like the social dynamics of this team. So I had to cut it off as much as I love lacrosse, because I used to stress Miss Salazar out by not finishing my builds by going to lacrosse practice. So yeah, like I switched to software engineering, and then out of nowhere, I decided to take a German class, and then I take German class for a year. And we're like, this was during my crisis time. So like, this was my 3rd year. Technically, I'm supposed to graduate the year after, but I'm taking German. I'm like taking computer science classes. I could finish in 4 years. And then I said, why would I do that when I could go study abroad for a year? And that's what I did. I just studied abroad for a year, left for a year, lived in Berlin.
Were you walking around campus and like saw a poster for this? Like, how did this even, how did your mind get on to study abroad? Like it was more, you just needed another break, and the break from it sounds like you attempted to kind of reboot yourself and take some classes that you felt like were very manageable and will get you going again. And German actually triggered, you know what? I haven't seen enough of the world. Let me go do that instead.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, at UCI, you're required to take 1 full year of a language in order to graduate. So because of that, I had to take a language, and I was like, what's like a language that is so far away from me that I would not know how to speak it? And German was the one that I picked. And also, like as the robotics and the mechanical engineers say, there's something about German engineering. So I was like,
Yes,
I want to know
yes.
what's up about German engineering. Tell me what's up about it.
Yeah.
So I like prepared to study abroad, and my mom was super stressed out because, as you'll hear many times in your life, they'll be like, well, how are you going to pay for it? And I was like, I'll handle it. I'll just handle it. I had no idea how I was going to handle it. At this time, I was working 30 hours a week at Starbucks. I was like barely able to pay for most things. And then I found one scholarship. It was just one scholarship, and it was the Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, or the German Academic Exchange Service. And I applied. It was a really it was quite a thorough application, like compared to some of the other applications I've done. And I was selected, and I cried that day I was selected. That was so crazy to me, because this is a super, like, if you're part of this like scholarship, I learned now, but I didn't know when I was applying. You're like part of this network, and like people like we have an alumni portal as well. Like we can chat if we want. You meet friends that are all accomplishing really crazy things at their universities and stuff. And it's like sponsored by the government. So like you're actually like there as part of a government initiative. And part of that is kind of like to show more of the world, like what like you can get from Germany, like partially related to World War II, like trying to separate themselves from that. Anyways, so I did that, and they paid me like I'm comfortable talking about numbers. I'm trying to get rid of that stigma, but they paid me like 725 euros a month to go. They paid for my tuition to go to the university. They paid for my plane ticket there and my plane ticket back. They paid for my health insurance for the year, because in Germany you're required to have health insurance. But they paid for my health insurance. And they paid for my it's tuition, but tuition is like $350, and pretty much it pays for your like bus pass for the year to take public transit for free and get your student card and go to museums for free.
Cool.
And, yeah, and then they also paid for me to travel within Germany to go to like conferences so that we can meet people who also received the thing. So that's what I did. I did that for a whole year, and then I came back and I kept studying. Oh, I took computer science classes while I was abroad. That's like a huge thing. A lot of people don't do that, but I can talk about it.
Hey, Janella, I think our crowd, someone in the audience has a question they want to throw out at us here. So, Sophia, do you have a question for us?
Yes, a member from our audience in the San Diego area wanted to ask, how did the international study experience impact you as a person?
Oh, yeah, cool. I am a different person now, 100%. I mean, for full context, I was abroad the year that our current president was running for his seat. So it was very interesting to have experienced that like very like heightened political climate abroad, and have like this international perspective, because there's really nothing like knowing like how much people really care about what happens in like the United States, and like people really care about your opinion. So one of the things I learned was how to have political discourse and like have it maturely, and like know that just because people are asking you questions doesn't mean that they're attacking you. That's one thing. But I took all of my computer science classes in German, so like I also know the technical jargon of a lot of the words in my field abroad, and I met really great friends. There's something they say about like Germans where like it's really hard to make friends with a German, but once they decide that they're your friend, then you can't get rid of them. And that's surprisingly true. I learned a lot about being alone, and I learned a lot about navigating your own life when you feel like you don't have a direction, which like I think if you've been listening for the whole time, I really navigate life without any direction. But I feel like I also learn how to start, or well, one thing I learned about myself is that I really need to work on acknowledging my own accomplishments and like looking at myself and being like, you're actually really cool. You've actually done all of these awesome things. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't really do often enough, is that they like look at themselves and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm actually
Yeah.
really cool. Like,
You have some honest retrospect where you accept the credit for what you've done. And
yeah,
the people, they're not necessarily trained to run around and gloat. But I think as an adult, there's times and places for you to just be very upfront and say, here's what I can and can't do, and here's where my successes lie.
mhm.
Would you do me a favor? And so, like, I think for me, I'm still trying to imagine this a little bit. So, you you're studying in German. I mean, all of this kind of goes together, but you would never see the blocks going together beforehand.
Yeah.
All right, so you're studying German. You decide you're gonna kind of spread your wings and fly a little bit before we finish graduation. Somehow, there's one thing you sign up for, one scholarship, one plan of action, and you get it, and you go to Germany and you live in Berlin, you live in, like, where in Germany are you living in the middle of a farm in the middle of nowhere? Are you in like a cool place? Is it like social? Are you like, wow, this is Germany? Like, where were you?
Right. So when I first moved there, I actually moved against my program. So I actually, like, talking about blazing trails left and right and having no direction, I had to make modifications to my university like program. So it's very regimented when you study abroad and you go to a partner university, because they have expectations that you're going to go and do this thing, and then you're going to go somewhere else according to their plan. When I got the scholarship, I was also I received an additional scholarship to go to the Goethe Institute in Göttingen, which is in the middle of Germany, in
Okay.
the middle north-ish side of Niedersachsen. It's called Göttingen is the city that creates knowledge. Göttingen University is a huge university. It's apparently well known internationally. I had no idea when I was going there, but it's quite small. It's a little like a very small town, and there's like cobblestones and there's old buildings and old churches, and I'm just in awe. If you're born and raised in California, you've never seen anything as old as Germany before. That was the craziest thing for me. Like, growing up in my Chula Vista suburb in Otay Ranch, I was walking in places where there were trees that were probably older than my grandma. Like, that is so, there's nothing that old in Otay Ranch. Like, I'm just saying. And yeah, so I stayed there for 2 months. I did an intensive language program that was paid for by my scholarship. And I was going to the school alongside all of the other scholarship winners. So that was one of the things. And they also paid for my accommodation there. They also paid for my Wi-Fi and water and bills and all that stuff. That was crazy. I didn't even have
Germans had you covered.
I know. I didn't have to think about money. That's the craziest thing. Growing up the way I did, I've never not thought about money. And it was like handled. And yeah, so I did that. And
Take away a major stressor and just let you concentrate on being you and in the experience. Like, yeah, I think that puts a 4-star little moment on an experience when you don't have to really pay for it. So you go to more than one college I guess that's what you were getting at. You go to more than one college while you're studying abroad. First 2 months are at this little crazy college that makes me realize why you now have the dog you have, which is a greater Swiss mountain dog. And I had the smaller cousin, but like, that makes sense now. I was always like, I wonder why she has that dog.
Yeah.
Well, now listen. Okay, so where do you go after Gutenberg?
Göttingen.
So, write that down, people.
I finished that part of the program, and it's funny because when they drop you in a little town, I don't even know if that's a respectable way to describe this place. This little city, a tiny city. You don't think that much about how you have to learn German, or you're not going to know where to go to poop, or you're not going to know how to order your food, because they speak German there. And they might be educated enough to speak English, but it really says something when like a place really wants you to speak their language, and like they want to help you learn it. That's like, that was something that I didn't expect, is that like, one, like usually I've heard like, oh, you know, like you're in America, speak English, but like there it's like, you're in Germany, speak German, and I'm going to help you learn how to speak German.
Yeah, the assistance is always provided because it's I've heard that about some European countries, especially Germany, that they have a very strong sense of nationalism. And when you come, and especially if you're staying, now, if you're just visiting, we'll get you through the moment. But if you're staying, oh man, it's time for you to learn. We go right back to the idea that Germans are the basic foundation of American education. And if we take that as the a really important part of your experience, Germans make sure that that is important, and all the way down to language itself, rules. I'm pretty sure someone walked you through all the rules of everything. Um, I'm actually thinking I need you to come over and reprogram my Mercedes and make it go faster. Sorry, that was so sidetracked, but every mechanic in the group right now is laughing and giggling. I hope all you guys are out there, like all the adults are like, yeah, that's totally Mr. Pearson. And so, Janella, what's the next school you end up going to while you're in Germany?
Yeah, I went to the Technische Universität Berlin, and so like this is to go back, like that's a in English that's Technical University Berlin, and I said that I got paid 750 euros a month, right? The
Right.
reason why that's significant is because Berlin is the cheapest metropolitan city in a developed country. So my
Really?
rent was 400 euros per month. 400 euros for my own flat, my own kitchen, my own bathroom. And I don't know if high school students are thinking about this yet, but $400 in America might get you this room that I have right now in the
Might,
summer. Might.
might.
It might get you a bunk bed in a master bedroom that's shared with three people. So like, you know, you might get this or you might get something else. And so like I had like a lot of room to like actually support myself, which was another thing that I didn't have to think about. And like my groceries were like maybe $50 every week or two. Like it was really cheap, and there's grocery stores like everywhere. So I didn't have to think about that. And my university was a 20-minute U-Bahn or underground train straight up to the university. So everything was very simple. Everything was super, super accessible. I feel like I'm talking up Germany, but I really changed my life. I'm just saying.
It's okay. I think from our end, this is what we want to know is if we take, for the audience out there, just to make sure that if this is your first episode, please go to YouTube, look up the past episodes of the Alumni Symposium series, and we try to through all the different pathways that you can get to college or get through your next experience of life. And so in those episodes, we have different schools represented in Southern California. We have schools represented like MIT, conversations talking about applying and letters. And some of our kids have sat on the committees that are reading your letters. So there's some insight there. But what we really want to know is, yeah, how did this affect you? I would love for a kid to be like, Stanford changed my life or MIT changed my life. If going to Germany and studying outside of what is considered normal, like, son, I'm not calling you weird, but this is definitely not a normal path you would see most American students take.
Let alone computer science students, for sure.
And then we throw you into that whole category. I think from our end, we have. I know there are, and I'm not telling you that the boys aren't enjoying this, but I have some young ladies right now who are really enjoying this conversation you're having, and we're recording this so I can show it to future generations too. And so, no, please continue. So, this entire time you're programming computers in German. You've learned German. Do you find that programming in German is way different than speaking German?
Well, I mean, programming itself, like the act itself, doesn't change because they use the same language, right? Like that was something that I was really surprised or interested to know because German, like how do you know what an and statement is? Like, does it make sense? But they speak English there, so it doesn't have that much layers. But yeah, I was taking so many classes that, and when I was picking my classes, right, like this is the details. I tried so hard to match it with any class that I could for the upper division computer science program at UCI. So right now I'm a software engineering major. That's what it says on my like degree works, right? And I'm just picking and choosing classes based on that. Like I know like American students, we'd be looking at rate my professor to choose what we're going to pick next.
Yeah.
Right? But I was looking at syllabi, I was looking at content, I was making sure that I was going to get a grade, because in Germany, you could take a class with no grade. And I would say like a really big thing that changed the game for me, even just as a student, but now how I navigate my life, is they really teach you accountability over there. And they really teach you the value of communicating with your professors, like big time. Because I took a artificial intelligence class. It was in German. And and then I also took an information retrieval class. So the information retrieval, we're going to bench that one. Artificial intelligence, like, and I was also there for a year. So I took a lot of other classes as well. So the way it works in Germany is you can be in the lecture, you can take the exam, and if you fail the exam, by law, you have the right to retry 2 times. So like, because of that, you don't even have to pay for additional tuition to pass this class. Right. If you need to sit in lecture to pass this class, then you can sit in lecture if you want, or you can just go and learn and do your own thing and then take the test whenever you can. There's a little bit of like nuances if you don't pass after the 3 times. Like if you're a doctor, you're not you're not allowed to become a doctor in Germany or something like that. But for computer science, it's not like that.
So the German system has tracks.
Yes.
And academic tracks that allow you to progress into certain career fields. And we would love that, because I explain it like this: if someone jumps out of an ambulance, I sure don't want the C student jumping out of the ambulance to save my life. And so they've kind of clarified that in Germany. And yes, academics are directly connected to ability to take courses in certain areas or certain subject areas. So this is cool, because like the conversation, like we invite you here without knowing everything that's going to blossom. But what I got so far is ups and downs, continued at college, especially when you realize that the outlook of where you were wasn't necessarily what you're dreaming about. You found a different route that at least made you smile, get out from where you were. You end up in Germany. The super bonus is someone else is paying for it. Allows you to concentrate on what's going on with school. Afterwards, you realize you have this wonderful education from 2 German colleges, I hope, and an incredible experience. I want to bring you back to the next step, or at least see. Well, let me let you do this. Is there anything else about the experience of that school that you want to share with the group? Because I know there's a couple of people out there that came to hear about where you work right now.
I know, yeah. But that's a big, okay, well, I'll wrap this up. We'll skip the details of the classes. I actually did quite well. I got pretty high German marks for one class. And when I'm talking about communicating with your professors, like they're human, and like talking to them, going to office hours, that is something that I learned in Germany. And I hope that you guys take that lesson with you, that you're not afraid to talk to your professors, because I feel like they seem so distant in American college, but in my German college, they were like, they're right there, they're accessible. And when I took that learning back to United States University, it was exactly the case. They were available for me when I needed them to. And one of those things was towards the end of my German experience, there was quite a stir. For one class, I ended up doing most of the work for a project in artificial intelligence, and I coded almost like 70% of the first 2 milestones for a anti-king chess AI machine learning class. So basically, anti-king chess is a type of chess variant, and then we had to make an AI that plays it. We did anti-king so that, like, if a student had advantage of knowing the rules in chess, then you don't have that rule or that advantage. But I was on an original team. I was excited to work with them. And they wanted to leave the entire project to the last 10 days, basically, because they had other classes that were so stressful. And I was just like, I don't know about you guys, but this class is the one that's important to me.
Yeah.
And I completely like mess them up. So this is another lesson to you high school students going to college. If if you ever get saddled on the team that is trying to get you to do all of the work, cover your butt. So that's what I did. I took all of my GitHub commits and I showed it to the professor and I said, I want to leave this team. And we looked at all of the GitHub graphs and I showed them, I'm doing all of the work. The only reason why they have anything to turn in right now is because of me, and it's stressful and I'm unraveling. And at that point, I had also done so well collaborating with the other teams and helping them with their AIs, because I've written an AI before, that we ended up being so good together that they were like, it doesn't matter what team you want to join. If you want to join my team, I'll help you out. If you want to join this other person's team, I'll help you out. So being pleasant and trying to show up for my team helped out other teams that they wanted me when I said I was teamless. And I ended up meeting my best friend Philip in that class, and we would stay at the university for like 24 hours in this building called Tell. And it's cool because that university is open 24 hours. They have security. So like you can just walk in and walk out as long as you're a student. You can study there the whole entire time. And like there's all of these food places because you're kind of like in the Zoologische Garten area, which is not downtown, but sort of downtown. So you can get food.
They have couches that kind of double as places where you can sleep if you happen to lay down,
Yeah.
like maybe a little thing that works.
Yeah. Okay, wait. So I'll just wrap this up. So those are the two lessons about navigating school. Talk to your professors,
Yes.
And cover your butt, and never, ever, ever let anybody take advantage of you, because it is just way too much energy out there to let anybody like take credit for your work. And I did not let them do that. And then I had to separate from that team, and that was stressful. And then when that problem got solved, another partner, and this is for all my ladies out there in tech, because this might happen. I hope it never happens to you, but it happened to me. My homework partner developed a crush on me. And when I said I didn't want to date him, he like went off the edge. And I had to pretty much just like shun that. And like, even though he was my homework partner in a German heavy class and I was struggling, I just had to cut it off. And he ended up being so ashamed that he would always do half of the homework and just never talk to me. And then I would look at the Google Doc that we were sharing, and then I would be like, oh, cool, half of the homework is done. I'm going to go do my stuff. Because to him, the shame of getting talked to by the professor would be too much. So that wasn't a go. And then I ended up failing. I ended up failing a algorithms class, which, like, if you're a computer science student in the future, algorithms and data structure is always the hardest class in any university. And I found that to be true in Germany too. And then I was almost homeless because my landlady went like off the edge. And so there was a lot of stuff happening at the end that I ended up failing this algorithms class, right? And because I talked to my best friend Philip, he told me, you are taking this German course. You have the right to retake it. It doesn't matter if you are going back to the United States. It is the law that they have to find a way to accommodate you. And he said, but if that means going over webcam, then that's what's going to happen. If that means I have to retake it in the future and take a flight back to Germany, then that might be it. But I need to talk to my professor. And that's when I relearned that lesson, that you have to talk to your professor. And I told him candidly about what was happening to me. And he was like, you know what, based on this, we're going to let you, like, those are crazy circumstances. We're going to let you retake this. And then it turned out a month later, when all of the other exams got submitted, everybody else did badly, way worse than me. So I ended up getting like a C+, a B- in that class. So, and then when I came back and I had to do the whole thing and wrap everything up nicely. And I ended up getting credit for all of the classes that I took abroad, which was 6 classes. And then now let's talk about what y'all want to hear. Like,
Yeah. Hey,
go ahead.
a special word out there, and especially for kids who are involved in loving the idea of working with computers. I mean, there's a few names out there. You throw them out. You say, hey, someone works for Qualcomm, someone works for Amazon, someone works for such and such. But man, you say someone works for Google, and some of my friends out there in my robotics world, those ears pop up, and all of a sudden they're like, really? And we will give Google an incredible shout out, because every year they're at Worlds, they support VEX Robotics. They are a sponsor of the program that our robotics team participates in. And have collected things at their table and brought them back to the pits, and everyone's like, you got Google glasses, you got that. You know how Worlds is, you got a bag full of stuff after you're done. But you come back and somehow you get a job at Google. Can you tell us what you applied for? Did they find you? We've been hearing a lot about LinkedIn, like these different ways people find you. So what was your story? How did Google get in touch with you, or you get in touch with them?
Right. So let's see. I'm like possibly the most talkative person I know, and you know that really well. I mean, like before this, I was gonna say, like, has my volume changed? Like, I feel like I still talk as loud as I do. But I graduated. I actually ended up. So I thought I was on a 5-year track. I ended up graduating a quarter early, and I was doing the thing. I was doing the thing that every computer science student does, and I applied, and I just threw all of my applications out into the nebulous world. And I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I did not do internships any summer. Like when I first decided to go to Germany, I knew it would mean that the 2 summers that I would be in a computer science program, I would not be able to do an internship then, and then in my before my graduating year. And when you go to college, you're going to hear a lot about everybody doing internships every single summer, and they're getting their money and it's a great time, or that they're just trying to pad their resume and stuff like that. I had like one internship, and it was like at a questionable aerospace company, and it was questionable because they had like no direction. Like they went from one day like acquiring the company that created the screens on the back of the on the back of the seats to
Right.
like making spas, and then going back to aerospace. I don't know. They had like no direction. It was super weird, but I got my internship.
It's interesting that the intern said it was kind of a funky whole dealio. Like when the intern walks in and says, you guys have no direction, maybe you shouldn't be the intern there.
And in fact, I wasn't. You want to know what happened? The person who hired me, who was a software engineer, who was an ex-software engineer from Boeing, big deal, I know, and her superior, who was also from Boeing, got fired. So there was a moment in which I was the most senior person in the software development department.
And you're an intern.
And I was an intern. Like, imagine writing bullets for that experience on your resume.
But that's okay. You can use that as part. But the first thing that clicks in my head as an educator and being a mentor for these kids is you honestly actually replace that summer internship with an international trip that I would say a lot of companies were looking for. Like this experience of you first knowing German, you second knowing coding in German, and third now working for an international business. I would say that replaces some of those things out there. And yes, she's right. Every kid that we've talked to has said internships, summer this, summer that, NASA, JPL, that's the but I think also, guys, you have to hear Janella's telling you, I didn't do those, and look where I end up getting to. But I do want to make sure that everyone realizes that school in Germany is what's replacing that in my mind. I'm looking at, wow, this kid's gone places and figured it out. So how many places do you get job offers for? Or is Google the one place that's taking a risk on you?
I got two meaningful ones hackathons, I stopped applying. That's the thing. So I guess I told you about what I didn't have, which is like the internships, which is a really big thing. That's what everybody has. But what I did have besides the school was I went to hackathons, which like I won a pretty good award apparently at my first one, which was strange. It was really weird because I went in there knowing I didn't know nothing. And then like I came in with a really good idea. A team wanted to pick me up because they're like, well, if it's your idea, we want to pick you up.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning an IBM award. And then I went to YHAC my graduating year, all the way in Yale, just super random. I had no money to pay for it, but like they were giving out scholarships. So they paid for my plane ticket to go. And obviously you don't need accommodation or food because they're going to feed you there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I think about. I feel like if there's something you want to do in life and you don't know if you should do it, just ask yourself if you can like feed yourself and sleep and like, you know, like if you can have the bare minimum, like you won't have the most, like I'm sure I would be $20,000 richer every single year that I did a internship, but I feel like I chose the things that I really wanted to do. And I feel like that's not something that I hear a lot of my peers talking about, because when I decided to study abroad, there was one thing in my mind, and that was I need to study abroad because a lot of people come back and say their only regret in life from college is not studying abroad. Because guess what? You can only study abroad once, and it's while you're in college.
Yeah.
And so, like what you're saying with this whole, like, you know, they see this international experience, it's kind of meaningful because it turned out that my recruiter who picked up my resume, my Google recruiter who picked up my resume from the time that we first spoke, was going to go and visit Germany in like the next 2 weeks. And like, so her seeing Berlin, I don't know if that's the thing or the one you never really know, but she was so excited to talk to me about it. And she was so excited to talk to me about like, what do I recommend doing? Like you lived there for a year. And I feel like there's like those genuine little like sprinkles of like moments where it's not deniable that this could have possibly influenced me going there. I didn't have a referral. So like for I know that it feels really hopeless when you're applying to jobs and it feels like you need a referral or else you're not going to get in. But I didn't have a referral. I had no connections to Google, but I got it. Before getting contacted by Google, I was interviewing heavily for Square. That was my dream company. That is where I wanted to be. And I made it to the final round and I got rejected. I was so devastated. But within 10 minutes of receiving my rejection letter, I got my first contact from Google.
Very cool.
I was just like, what is going on? Like I'm heartbroken right now, but I'm happy. What's going on? And then I had applied for the software engineering new grad role, and it was like for all offices in the United States. Mind you, at this point, I didn't know what I was going to do while I was applying, because when you start applying, it's like August, September. And at that point, I was like, am I going to go study abroad again? Am I going to go to Singapore? Because Singapore is heavy on that tech, heavy on that computer science. Am I going to go get a graduate degree? Am I going to get a job in the United States? Am I going to get a job in Germany? Like for me, it was like I'm the type of person to prepare for all options that I might want to do so that I can have the choice. I don't go like, oh well, what if I don't get that? Or what if I don't get this? I go like, I'm going to try and do all the things so I can get all of the things that I'm going to choose. And then I ended up getting an offer from Western Digital. And like I said, I like numbers. So I'm going to say that my offer was $75,000 to be a software engineer in Western Digital in Irvine. And I'm just kidding. Like, that is not a competitive offer, folks. Like, I'm just saying, like, you have to go get your coin. You have to get your coin. And basically, literally, what happened was I got that offer a week before I was supposed to hear back from my Google recruiter. And I asked them politely, can you extend the deadline so that I can make a sound decision, right? And they said, no, we can't extend the deadline. So I just accepted. I was just like, you know what? Fine. Like, a girl need a job, whatever. I need to pay student loans. So that happened. And then a week later, I hear back surprise, surprise. And I ended up getting the offer, which was crazy. Oh wait, there's like a little bit of in between there. So the detail is that I interviewed for software engineering, and my recruiter one day called me and she was like, we got some bad news and we got some good news. And the bad news was I wasn't going to be selected for software engineering just because they wanted somebody with just a teensy bit more experience. So that's like the internship thing, right? Like you lose your battles and you win some battles. And the battle that I won was they asked me to do engineering residency instead. And so I became an engineering residency cohort N. So last 2 years ago, September, that's my cohort. If any of you guys end up in engineering residency one day, that's who I'm repping. But so I become an engineering resident. And that program is, I don't know how well known it is, but basically you work at Google for a year and you rotate your team. So you do a training period, which when you are a new grad at Google, you don't do any training. Really, you do like a project in the beginning and then you hop onto your team. So I did a training of 7 weeks, and then I did 4.5 months of rotation on one Google team, and then 4.5 month rotation on another Google team. And then after that, you're supposed to like match back onto your old team or your previous team. But my previous teams didn't have headcount, so I ended up being on the current team that I'm on. So I'm currently developing software for our data centers. So I pretty much like help figure out where the computers go, what computers we need. We're the guys that like Google Maps talks to if they say we need more computing power, or Gmail is like, hey, we need more of something, and that's what they do. That's what we do. I guess I am part of that. I'm the person that is.
You're part of this team. So wow. Okay. So you've changed kind of like the dynamic of the field of study 3 times along the way here, right? Okay. So you're like a total robotics kid at the end of this. Like seriously, it's like all parts of this. Now we're in the engineering part, and you didn't even want to start there. That's amazing, Jimmy. The flexibility, the adventure in this whole story, the way that you've walked through the kind of willingness to not know exactly what's going to happen, but still, go out and do that. Just a different story. It's such a different story than, and guys, if you're one of those alumni that came back in those other episodes, no disrespect. I'm loving all of these perspectives because especially in this year, the students that are graduating and my juniors there, we may not get to have all this insight given to us. We won't have all these college. We won't, start thinking down the path of maybe there's something in Germany for me to do. Heck, I'm about to apply to see if they have a mentors program in Germany, and they'll pay for me to go there for a while. When we talk about the Google teams, I know right now you're located in San Diego. I also know that not long ago you were in Seattle, I believe. And so is this all done through the internet when you guys are interacting about where you need more computer powering and more direction like that? Or do you guys get together sometimes? Do you fly to Seattle? I know the world we're living in now, we're doing this over the internet. So I'm imagining internet a lot. But if we're not in a pandemic, what would this look like for you?
So if we weren't in a pandemic, I'd still be in Seattle. So I guess, right. So I said I love talking numbers, and like new grad salaries are super nebulous. So I'll say that since I was an engineering resident, I did not receive stock. I did not receive a sign-on bonus, but my annual salary was 112. And to me, I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to accept that. And I'm also going to talk about how when you enter computer science world or the degree program or your university, everybody wants to be like, oh, it's so rude to renege. No, it's not. Like maybe if you're like, you want to do an internship at some place later. But like, so reneging, I guess, do you guys still do alliances at like computer?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically it's like, if I said, I'm the first team who's picking, and I said, I want you to be my alliance. And they were like, yeah, sure. And then the next team was like, oh, well, I wanted you to be on my alliance, but I guess I'll pick someone else. And then the guy who's just said yes goes, no, me. I want to be on your team, actually. That is reneging, right? But like the reason why, like, for example, do you guys still have that rule? If you say no, then you say no to all teams, right?
You say no until you can pick. Yeah, it's something like that. It's the same concept.
Cool. So the reason why that's not a problem is like a company is a company, and I'm for sure they will do anything to save their budget. If Google is under tomorrow, I'm sure they will have no problem firing me, and that's okay because I know it's a company. And like I don't have any delusionment about how like Google is my life and they are my love and I'm going to die at Google. Like Google is a job, right? And so like reneging is not bad. What is bad, or this unprofessional thing that people talk about when you enter your degree program on reneging, is if you actually want to work at that company one day. If you actually want to work at that company and do an internship next summer, then don't renege, because why don't you just do it now and then go get the internship that you wanted to renege for the next year? Because you got it this year, you can get it next year. I feel like when you're like in this competitive like school mindset, it really feels like it's all or nothing all the time, and it always feels like, no, if this moment doesn't happen now, it's never going to happen. But the thing is, there is always life after the interview. There's always life after the offer, and there's always life even after you get the job, because after you get the job, you could leave, or you could stay, you know.
You can grow in that position, or you can find something that makes you grow someplace else. But what she's talking about, guys, is once you say you're going to do something, you follow through and you finish that. There's a moralistic, and we talk about this, guys, in the bill still to the day. You do things with ethics, you do things with a moralistic stance, and you approach things consistently with those two concepts in mind. I will tell you the world will work out for you, because people don't become offended. They don't feel like they were mistreated. They don't feel like that you did them one dirty. And later on, when you need that assistance from that person is someone who's going to smile upon you. Even though you may have not worked for them before, they remember those ethics and the morals that you carry as you walk through your experiences.
Yeah, you just got to accept the consequences, right? So, for example, I may never work at Western Digital because I reneged them. But one thing my friend told me was, she told me, Janella, I don't think you'll want to work for them after you've worked for Google. You'll want bigger things. And that's true. And like between $75,000 and $112,000 a year, I'm just saying, like, that's like a huge difference. And like, we got to get our money. We got to start building equity as like, you know, hopefully there's people of color in our crowd. You know what I'm saying? Like, as women, we have to build our equity. We have to get our coin. We have to catch up. And like, if that's the case, then you can't let these like reneging ethics get in the way. Like you gotta like stand up for yourself, and that's something that I wish I do more of. But yes, so now I'm at Google. That is where we're at now.
Dun, 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 dun. And I expect that at some point you're going to give me a cool poster to hang in my room that says something. All right, I have posters from JPL. I need a Google poster.
Find one.
Well, let's do this. For everyone out there in the audience, I think we've had a wonderful hour with Janella, and let's see if there's any questions that any of the ladies would like to jump out of my background directing crew and throw out at us. If you are out there and you want to ask a question real quick, you're more than welcome to type into the Twitter box, the chat box there. Jai, you have a question for us?
Yes, one of the audience from the San Diego area is wondering, what programming languages do you find the most useful and beneficial?
Okay, cool. So I work in Java. Google is mostly Java, but I started programming in Python, and then I learned C++. So Java is actually the language that I taught myself. I taught myself it in Germany, and I taught myself it when I was developing that artificial intelligence. Those three languages are pretty much the core of development when you go into like the big N companies. So that like if you do interviews in those, like you're going to be pretty set, and usually you don't really have to pick one because your university will pick one for you. So UCI was Python, but I think UCSD is C++. And I hear that JavaScript is like the most used language, but I've never used it once before at all. So I can't tell you that much on that. I think C++ is pretty good if you want to do something a little bit more low level, or if you want to do graphics. I see more roles in C++. But if you want to do more general stuff, I do Java, and I love Java. Java's great. I'm a Java readability approver at Google. So pretty much I say, no, your code is not good enough right now to check in. Please do things.
Very cool. She's the one who now tells everyone, like, oh, hey. Okay, Sophia, you have a question for us?
Yes, Paige, one of our VEX referees, has a question for us. She wants to know if you believe that knowing multiple languages, such as English and German, has helped you in your career.
So, right, let's like rewind all the way back. I was born in the Philippines and raised in Japan. So there was a point at which, as a child, I may have spoken 3 languages, but we don't know that. And then I learned Spanish when I was in high school, and I don't know anything about Spanish, but I can order a good taco de lengua in Spanish. So I think it's helpful because there's something weird about learning languages, and I'm going to say this, and I hopefully don't sound like a really, really crazy programmer, but like I feel like I've been able to pick up computer science languages easier because I know what like mechanics in my brain exist to translate and understand a different language, where I know that a lot of my computer science class had a lot of struggle with like learning a new language. Like for them, it felt like they were learning it all the way over from scratch. But like for me, I felt like I could make those connections easier. On like, that's like the work level. On like the human level, it's a really cool party trick. Actually, like for a year, my entire goal was to work on developing a fun fact because I believed that I had no fun facts to share. And the fun fact I ended up developing was that I could say, I don't know how to speak this language in that language in 12 different languages. So that was pretty helpful. Yeah, I mean, like I think the process of learning is what I found the most helpful about learning different languages. Like the process of like understanding what is missing from the language that you're speaking versus the one that you're trying to speak. Like in Tagalog, we have the word kilig, which doesn't exist in English, but like basically it's like it's describing a feeling of feeling something really cute or whatever. So I feel like that's helpful. And also like it really helps you connect with other people more. Like it's kind of weird. You never know who speaks German, who speaks Spanish, who speaks Tagalog. I'm relearning Tagalog right now, actually. So I think that's how it's been helpful.
That flexibility of being multilingual does cross over into all these other aspects of things that are considered languages, but not necessarily based in syllable, word form, but the context of your coding. I 100% agree with that. And I'm blessed with a whole bunch of Mustangs out there who are multilingual. And I got one right here for you. So Jai, what's our next question? You want to say it in Chinese for me?
I'm good.
Good. Okay. What do you got for me, Jay?
A member from Mustang Robotics is wondering, in your opinion, what is the culture like at UCI?
Oh, there we go. And we do have a few different Mustangs that are attending UCI currently. A couple kids that are freshmen there right now.
Yeah. And I remember Hari was there temporarily. And I think Bryson was there, I think. It has changed. And I think like a good theme, if you're going to know me, is that I never feel like I could achieve what I have achieved if I'm trying to achieve it today. And that's because everything is so much more competitive. Like y'all, getting into Mustang Robotics is hard. I think getting into UCI, it's harder. Getting into Google, oh my gosh, like yesterday I introduced a bug into my code that is literally an interview question. Like I introduced a bug into my code that if you like did interview training, you got the Bible, the cracking the coding interview Bible, and like did all the problems, you would not have.
Wait a second, Janella, listen. So you put buried inside of your code is a question, and only a few people are going to actually discover that question. And when you watch that person discover that question, you realize they're a better coder than the other people you're interviewing. Like, are you seriously doing stuff like that? You're crazy, woman. Like, I'd be afraid to interview with you. Part of Janella, welcome to the idea you're growing up, hon, and you no longer have that same feeling of ease getting into new things. You're starting to harden a little bit in your ways, no matter how wild you will stay. And welcome to growing up a little bit. It's always easier when you're a kid.
I know. So wait, I forgot to answer the question.
Of course.
So at the time, it was very chill, very, very. We used to say that it was the UCI, that everyone who didn't want to pay for UC Berkeley or UCLA would go to there. And then if you were from San Diego, you were trying to get barely far away from your family. So like that's what it was. I mean, like it's changed so much. Like just walking there, they have like these crazy dorms. But I think like my main takeaway from it is that like you could find some really cool people there, and like you don't have to do everything that everyone has done. Like I didn't join crazy clubs. Like I joined the lacrosse team for a little bit, and it ended up being really toxic. But one of my best friends I just met sitting next to me in like my class. So I really liked that it wasn't really competitive when I was there. And like the bio classes though, that was crazy. Nobody wanted to share answers. Nobody wanted to study together. But computer science, it was chill. Also, it's really cool because the professors have all industry experience, which is something that I didn't really understand at the time why that's important. But like we actually had a Googler teaching our information retrieval classes, and like I actually don't know if she's working at Google, but that's really cool. Like a lot of those like universities that are smaller that maybe don't have as much name recognition, which I'm not sure if UCI has that name recognition now, like they actually have a lot of professors that are like, for example, the Google campus that is in Irvine is like a straight road and a left turn away. So like whenever I'm over there, I just go check out the UCI campus. Also, there's something really cool about Irvine is that like basically it's like a suburb, and it's like definitely over policed. If like for my folks over there that are interested in current events, it's over policed. They spend way too much on beautification and policing. So it's really nice. If you go there, your parents are going to be like, oh yes, go to Irvine. It is so safe.
It's
like
safe.
It's a city, and then you can go live your life and they won't bother you. But on campus is the only pub in Irvine, because there's like an ordinance that there's no like nightclub like bar thing allowed in Irvine, but it's only allowed on campus. So that's really cool.
And one of the funny things is you've referred a couple times, and if my mom and dad are out there listening, which every once in a while they come, yes, Mom, part of the reason I moved to San Diego from Orange County was to create a little distance. I used the same thing Janella did. But what I'm getting from you, Janella, is that school started when I was a kid, maybe even before that time period when I lived in Orange County. And at that time, we considered it a small school campus, something that you'd like home. When you attended the campus, a few years ago, there's been growth since then. And the competitiveness of that campus, just to even get in, has grown. And so I think for whoever asked that question out there, what's kind of cool is we can reach out to some of our friends who graduated last year and the year before, and we can get some of the current standing on those campuses, especially if you guys want to apply there. We can definitely ask for those kids to come back.
And
I have Sophia
out there, I'm so sorry, but for all my folks out there that love video games, go to UCI. They were the first U.S. university with an esports team. Riot like sponsored it and everything. They turned our like pool hall. We used to have a pool hall. Now it's a gaming lounge sponsored by iBuyPower. The school is sponsored by Newegg. They have scholarships for competitive video gamers. And to me, that's like really crazy, because like a lot of people think that playing computer games is a wash talent. But like at UCI, you can actually fund your education by going like, and also the computer game design program is like super crazy. The computer game science is really great and it's super unique. So that's not anything about the culture. That's a plug on my program. I love it. Like, I think that is so cool. And it's like nice to see that a university is out there to help promote like people with the talent of like clicking and mashing buttons,
incredibly fast button mashing. But that is an interesting twist, especially with the kids you're talking to right now. There's a few of them out there, probably my freshmen, who that's the only thing you've really heard all of this entire time is, "Ooh, I could go to college for video games." What I do have another question for you from I think our crowd out here. Sophia, you got another question?
Yes, the girls from Mustang Robotics all would like to know if you have ever encountered any gender-based challenges while you're trying to be a part of the software engineering industry, and more specifically, like while you're at Google.
Oh, well, let me tell you, there is some tea at Google. I'm a salty code gremlin for a reason. One is that there's I'm sure a few of you are familiar with Girls Who Code, which is a great, wonderful program. They promote the presence of or getting girls more interested, more confident in coding. But I would say that a major critique on that program, at least when I was in school, I didn't do the program, but when I was in school at high school level, they didn't teach boys that girls also belong in this space. So instead, what you have is qualified girls entering this space and boys being like, oh, you've never been here before. That must mean you don't know anything. And I feel like you notice it in these crazy microaggressions. And okay, so have I experienced that? The short answer is yes. Does it keep you from working? No, I'm still at Google, but does it make it hard? Yes. Are there ways in which you can feel supported at Google? Yes, which is really awesome. There's a lot of allyship. Right now it's really topical, but even before the social unrest, in the United States, there was a lot of allyship training, and allyship training is basically how you can turn from seeing something that's wrong and then actually doing something about it, and also teaching. It's a focus on teaching Googlers, especially male Googlers or people in more privileged positions, that sometimes allyship just happens in the smallest moments. And so the most recent one, and when I'm saying recent, I mean, I was sitting in this room, so it had to be since July. I was in a video call and it was a big meeting and I was supposed to present an idea, and the meeting was my slot and it was my time, and I was going to share a new program I designed. And basically what I was sharing was a new design process for our team because we lack a lot of process in that regard. So basically, if you put out a design document saying, hey, this is what we want to do with our program, it could be checked in and people ready to work on it in 3 days, or it could be ready in 4 months. People won't approve it. People won't comment on it. And if you decide hey, maybe if they don't comment on it, then it's an automatic approval. And then you start developing it. And then 6 months later, they decide, hey, that's not what we wanted to do. And I never approved it. That's those types of levels of communications are just so why haven't we figured it out yet in my mind? Anyway, so I developed this process. I had a whole document. I was presenting it to the team as a rudimentary first review. And I hadn't even gotten past the first paragraph, and this male senior engineer, so there's 2 power dynamics there. One, he's male, so he's already in a power of position, whatever, but he's doubly in a power of position because I'm in L3. So I'm entry level, lower, and he's up here, right? And more experienced, whatever. And he just starts bombarding me with this question about does this mean we're going to have more meetings? And I courteously tell him, well, actually, if you allow me to present, then that's actually a open topic for discussion. It's in this document already, right? But he keeps asking the same question and and he thinks it's in different ways because he thinks I don't understand what he's saying, but I understood what he's saying. And so at that point, I just put myself on mute. And that is a pretty big move, I think, because I was the one presenting. I just muted myself and I just kept going like this. And then my TL came in and he said, well, actually, if we go ahead on with the presentation, this topic is down here. And my TL, technical lead, is male. And then my mentor, he is male as well. He came in, he was like, well, I just don't understand your question. Why are we still talking about this? Let's allow this person to present. And then finally, my manager had to step in because his questions didn't make sense. Pretty much he was just up in arms about adding more meetings when part of the discussion was maybe we don't have to add meetings because we can reuse a meeting. And so
But
basically,
you never even got to that part of the conversation.
No, not at all. We like in that moment we didn't. And basically, at the end of all of this, my time was up, the meeting was up, and I'm not about to keep my people overboard. And so I tell them like, well, it looks like we're not able to converge on this topic. So I guess we'll continue this discussion later. And I was so mad. Like I was livid. That happened on a Thursday. On Friday, I was still mad. On Monday, I was thinking I was ready to quit. And like at Google, you never quit in the middle of the week. You have to quit on a Monday. So even if you quit on Wednesday, your official last day is Friday. So like I don't know why it's like that. So it's just a weird, funky thing. But anyways, yeah. So I was ready to just peace out because I literally remember saying that if I am being paid to do work and develop software and be on this team, I am specifically not paid to deal with that. And therefore I need to be paid more. Like that's like that was me right there. I was just like, no one's going to disrespect me. I worked too hard to get here. No, like, so it happened. But there was 3 people in that moment. Like that was what I took away from this. 3 people in that moment who are willing to step up and say that this person is taking up my time and being disrespectful. My manager ended up talking to this person and talking to them and giving them like critical feedback and telling them like, you can't just talk over somebody's space because you're confused about something when they've already said we're going to address it later. My TL ended up talking to them too. And my mentor ended up talking to him as well. And I told every single one of them, like, I want to thank you because that was a moment of allyship. And all of them were shocked. Like I told them on separate occasions and I said, that was a moment in which I felt like you guys stood up for me. And all of them learned that day that that's what allyship is. It's just very small moments where you feel like something is wrong and you do something about it. And for them, that was a learning experience. So, yeah.
They walked with morals and ethics at that moment, and you really appreciated that. Very appreciative. All right, Jai's back again. What do we have, Jai? Oh, we have a question. So go ahead. And I believe this will be, hey, Jai, let me do this. Episode-wise, guys, this will be our last question we field, so don't type any more into Twitter or Twitch. But Jai, go ahead and give us this question and make it a happy one. All right, here we go.
So an audience from the chat is wondering that you mentioned in the beginning of the interview that you originally didn't believe you would graduate. Do you have any advice for any high schooler who feel the same way as you?
I didn't think I wasn't going to graduate, not because I was doing badly in school, but like I was doing badly whenever I decided it wasn't a priority. That's the main thing. I felt like I wasn't going to graduate because I was bullied, and I was bullied for things like, am I allowed? I was slut shamed my freshman year. So that was a big one. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say that word. Is that a bad word? I don't know.
I think a lot of this, Janella, is just walk through this with honesty. And I've appreciated that so far. And yes, you can be a little salty about it, but at the same time, we got to keep this real and we got to be honest, because part of growing up and part of high school is having to deal with people who aren't necessarily showing you that respect of life. And for everyone out there, there's going to be something that makes it just a little harder for you to be successful. Sometimes it's outside of your school. Sometimes it's the people at your school. And sometimes it's the actual academic pressure. Guys, Janella's was not academic pressure. She already explained that she academically was taking AP level classes that got her through her freshman year at UCI. But yes, Janella, you have the right and the responsibility right now as an alumni to tell them the ups and the downs of whatever happened. Go ahead.
So I was slut shamed my freshman year. It like bled out. It was something that happened in middle school. And then, so this is my story. I'm going to say it. I was raped in middle school, and the guy told everyone. And everybody saw that as a right to be like, oh, Janella's a slut. She's not a virgin, blah, 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 blah. Well, funny enough, okay, like I'm just gonna call it out here. Like literally a year into high school, everybody was losing their virginities. Nobody was slut shamed. But the moment I knew it was bad was first day of high school. I meet this really cool girl in first period, and I was like, this person's really dope. I really want to be her friend, and we really hit it off, right? Most of my classmates from Rancho Del Rey that were my friends got transferred over to Olympian, so I had no friends. And yeah, so basically, I meet this really cool person first period. I have her in my fifth period, and by fifth period, she already knew, and she asked me about it, and she asked me, but like the story they heard is like, oh, so I heard that like you had sex with this person. And like to all my folks out there who don't know about consent, this is like something that was really meaningful in college for me. I didn't know I was raped. I didn't know I was raped until my first year of college, because in my first year of college at orientation, they teach you about consent. And I didn't consent to this. I was crying the entire time, and I ended up breaking up with that guy. And the crazy part is, he was my boyfriend. He was my boyfriend at the time. And everybody might make you feel like, you know, it can't happen if it's your boyfriend, you know, but it does. And it happened to me. And yeah, so like I didn't want to graduate high school. I didn't want to make connections with anybody. And I didn't want to keep going. So like, if you don't want to keep going because you are not interested in your classes and you don't feel successful, then like honestly, your parents are not going to let you drop out. I tried, like I really tried. I wanted to get homeschooled. I did all of the research. Like I made lists, all of the resources possible. I wanted to leave. And so that's my advice for you, is that like if you like think it is a viable option for you to leave high school, then do the research. But if it's not, you need to find something that can be your escape. And for me, that was robotics. That was the only place I felt safe. And that's why I needed friends. That's why I needed it so badly. My sophomore year, I ended up joining the swim team, which was like refreshing, but also not super awesome. You know, like people weren't really that close to me. And that's how I met Isabel, and that's how I found out she was on the robotics team. Like, I know that topic is really heavy, but I'm past it, honestly. Like, I can share it openly because I'm past it now. And so hopefully, like whatever you guys are going through, if you don't want to be in high school, you really like don't have to. There are GED programs. Southwestern is just right there. One of the things that I wish I had done while I was in high school was take classes at Southwestern so that I could be even farther ahead of my but also so that I can meet more people outside of your school. Because when you're like in school, maybe it doesn't feel that way now because you guys are all like, you know, at home and in your safe space. But like when you're in school and like you're stuck with these people for 4 years, 4 years is a long time when you're 16. That's 1/4 of your life, you know? Like, you have to think about that, because right now, 4 years to me is like nothing. I just blink and it passes by, and it's crazy. You know why? Because I have more years under my belt now. Like 1 year out of 25 is so meaningless. But when I was in high school, every single day was like the worst. I remember crying to my guidance counselor and saying, I want to leave. I don't want to be here. And like she helped me navigate finding out resources. And I would go to my mom every single day that I wanted to not do this. So like if you can't leave high school, try and find something outside of high school. Like for me, that would have been Southwestern College, because then you could meet people who are maybe more mature and like are not involved in this nonsense, and then you can like have another perspective, or you can find something like a safer space in school. So for me, that was Mustang Robotics. Or you can just get another hobby. Like for example, right now, if you're like really interested in like, well, not right now because COVID, but if you're really interested in languages, like there's like the Filipino school up in Mira Mesa. I know that's far, but like there's other programs like that. You can like, if you like, I know there's Chinese school near here, and you don't have to be Chinese to go take classes there. What a surprise, you know? So like if you absolutely have to stay in high school because your parents won't let you leave, then like there's home, you can ask and entertain the idea of homeschool. You can ask and entertain the idea of getting getting your GED done. You can try and take classes at Southwestern, which like apply. You can transfer all of your Southwestern classes over to your university degree if you want to go to university. But there's actually so much out there, and I feel like the world is so small when you're that young. But like
Very true.
I thought it was small, but like I found out that there's a whole Germany away, you know?
Yes.
And
Well,
like
guys, I think the one thing I want to make sure is Janella shares with us. If you do walk through high school and you feel like you need to avoid it for reasons like Janella shared, or it's just not working out, always feel like you can come and you can talk to me. Anyone out there, you can email me. Everyone seems to have my email address. But I think more of this is to make sure that you find someone that you can address the issue with and make sure that escape isn't the only pathway through that. Finding other things to do is one thing, but addressing the issue and being able to bring that quality of life back into the way you look at things is really the way we would want you to take that next step. Janella, a pleasure, an incredible pleasure for you to come back and join us. And not trying to age you, but many years after you graduated Otay Ranch High School, coming from that group of kids who all of us now in Mustang Robotics look back towards you guys, hanging pictures on the wall, stories that I share with the kids. And we are just happy that you guys are always willing to come back and share some time with us. So for everyone out there who watched this episode, we thank you. For anyone who watches it on YouTube, we thank you for spending the time to watch this episode. We will welcome you back for another episode next Friday. And ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful, safe, robotics-based, adventurous life out there. Thank you again for coming to this episode.
People try, it's the first thing they do. Only different, it happens to you. Only makes sense when speaking to you, but it got away. My goal